طيب, let me know you're ready, inshallah. طيب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. The classic or the famous classic جامع بيان العلم وفضله, جامع بيان العلم وفضله, of Abu Umar Yusuf ibn Abdul Barr, who died in the year 463 of the Hijrah. One of the most iconic books, one of the most classic or classical books regarding the adab of talab al-ilm, how to seek knowledge, the virtue of seeking knowledge, and the excellence of seeking knowledge, what to do as a beginner, what to do as someone who's moderate or intermediate, and what to do if and when a person becomes advanced, an advanced knowledge seeker, in which you're no longer a baby, okay, but you may not necessarily be independent. Or if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses you to seek knowledge in such abundance and such veracity and such longevity, in which you do become an independent expert. What's the adab of debating? What's the adab of ijtihad or taqleed, etc., etc. So this is one of the most important books, one of the most famous books, and it is an absolute must. It is an absolute necessary have in your library if you're a student of knowledge, for Arabic and for English. If you don't speak Arabic, have it in your library just to look at it, and just to maybe to refer back to it, just to have the inspiration. And if you do speak Arabic, if you're studying hadith, whatever you're studying, you have to have this book in your library. And every hadith disciple, this is a must. This is an absolute must. Just like the book of Khatib, Al-Jami' li Akhlaq al-Rawi wa Adab as-Sami, as we explained, right, Khalid? So obviously we know he died in the same year as Khatib al-Baghdadi, rahimahullah. And he was called Hafidh al-Maghrib. He was the genius of the West. Just like Khatib al-Baghdadi was called Hafidh al-Mashriq, the genius of the East. And he, subhanAllah, died during the same year. This is one of the best books, one of the most comprehensive books. Obviously has the chains of narrations, the athar, hadith, poetry. Beautiful, beautiful commentary of the author Ibn Abdul Barr. We've done a few fa'idas from this book before. We've done a few khutbahs from this book before. This is definitely at the top of the list. Top 3, if not the best. Okay, so it's a must-have. Jami' Bayan al-Ilm wa Fadlihi. The book is in 2 volumes. This print is in 2 volumes. This is volume number 2. This book was in a fire. And not only Adam was it burnt. أدركت شيئا أدركت شيئا وفاتتك أشياء. But many things, you understand one thing, but many things you what? You haven't understand. So just as a book can get burnt, a book can also get damaged by water. Because when people come to put out a fire, they do what? Splash water everywhere. So the damage by the fire could be burning, it could be smoke, or it could be what? Water, which is oftentimes the worst. So when I had a fire in my house some years back when I was living in Camden, New Jersey, I was living next door to the masjid. We had a fire there. Many books were burnt. Many books got smoke all over them, but many books were destroyed through water. You understand? So you may think that this is the worst thing, but what? Something else may be even worse. The water to put out the fire was even more detrimental to the books than the actual fire. So there's also another version of this book, which is a summarized version. And the muhaqqiq, the editor, Abu al-Ashbal al-Zuhairi here, he called it Sahih Jami' Bayan al-Ilm wa Fadlihi, the authentic version of the book. I mean, that's his choice and his preference in calling it that. In my humble opinion, it would have been better for him to just say Tahdhib or Mukhtasar, summarized version, and not to say this is the authentic version and the original version is the daif, and I wouldn't have said that. Al-Muhim is his work. Al-Muhim, that's the name of the book. You can get it. I don't have the book right now here, and I'm not going to introduce it to you right now. This is the Asl, 2 volumes, and this is, without a question, is the best print of the book. Dawud ibn al-Jawzi. So if you find the book, inshallah, you should buy it. And if you can't buy it, then at least, inshallah ta'ala, put it on your PDF, on your tablet, your smartphone, whatever you have. And it's absolutely, or it's an absolute must read and a must have. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. This is the book here, the PDF. You can find it for free. طيب تفضل. تفضل.
Initials KA from Manchester, UK. When is the Jumu'ah khutbah considered a long khutbah? When does it show one's lack of fiqh? I am referring to the hadith of Ammar.
طيب. The question comes from the UK. With regards to when is a khutbah, when is a Jumu'ah khutbah considered to be a long khutbah? And showing a lack of fiqh. I'm referring to the hadith of Ammar that is collected by Imam Muslim. Jazakallahu khairan for the question and for the information that you mentioned in your question. May Allah bless you. It's relative. There is no specific hadith or ijma' consensus of what is long and what is short. It's going to be based off of culture and custom. In this place, for a person to give an hour khutbah is considered long. 2-hour khutbah, obviously everyone can agree, I think, that that's long. But in certain places, 30 minutes is not considered long. It's not considered long. In certain places, it may be considered long. Me personally, if it was up to me, and if it wasn't for people's requests and people's demands and people's needs and things like this, me personally, I would prefer to do a khutbah 10 to 12 minutes long. 15 minutes at most. But obviously, what I want is not always what happens. And there's certain people, I had a debate years ago. A brother of mine, we were studying together in my apartment, in my library. And we had a debate on this issue. Is a 30-minute khutbah considered to be long? He said, no, it's not. Rather, the people have to have at least 30 minutes. Before anything pertaining to this masjid, before America. He said, it has to be. He says, that's when most Muslims come to the masjid. The average person doesn't get the point unless you repeat it 2 or 3 times. Too short would just be breakneck speed for them, and they wouldn't be able to manage and handle a khutbah that quick and that simple. Let alone the fact that there are other hadiths that are authentic that mention that the Prophet ﷺ, his khutbah was kanat qastan. His khutbah was qast, meaning that it wasn't too short. So just like there are hadiths saying that is the inna tula salati rajuli wa qisra khutbati ma'innatu min fiqhihi, hadith that was mentioned, a man's prayer being long and a man's salat and his khutbah being short is a sign of his understanding. It doesn't mean that mukhil يعني مخل بالمقصود لا يعني الإخلال بالمقصود بالوعظ والتذكير والإرشاد والتعليم. So there's a balance, and that's going to be based off of the time and the place in which you are. Or one may say the asl is that do a short khutbah, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and every now and then do a longer one. Every now and then. It may be something really important. It may be something really pertinent and pressing to the affairs of the people and the Muslims at that time, which have to speak a little longer. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. What's the time, Khalid? 2 minutes or 3 minutes? 3? Okay. Jazakallah khairan. Fadal.
Sheikh, a follow-up on that. Is there expiation for missing part of the khutbah but you catch the prayer?
Is there an expiation for missing the khutbah but you catch the prayer? I don't know of any specific expiation. I don't know him. Try your best to get to the prayer on time. And what's meant by the prayer is the whole entire service. إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله. Alright, when the call to the prayer is made on Jumu'ah, then hasten forth to the remembrance of Allah. That verse doesn't just necessarily mean when you hear the adhan. Especially in 2018, in which you have to make preparations way before the time for the adhan. You understand? The adhan is at 1 p.m. You live in New York City, traffic, this, that. You have to prepare. Okay? Even if you're just getting there for the bare minimum of before the imam starts to speak. Alright? I don't wish to get a cow or a camel or a horned ram or not going early, but just to get there for the bare minimum, you still have to make preparations. So you have to prepare for that nidah an hour before or 2 hours before, depending on your situation and depending on your mode and means of transportation. So therefore, if you do come late and you catch the salah, a specific expiation, I don't know of that. La adri. I don't know him. If it was your fault, you were lazy, or you mismanaged time, seek Allah's forgiveness. And Allah knows best. Fadal.
How can you address somebody that maybe be new to Islam and they don't understand the concept that or they might have heard the concept that the Christians and Jews are believers, or are our brothers in faith. And is that even?
طيب. With regards to someone who's new to Islam, and how to explain to them the concept of those who may say or think that the Jews and the Christians are believers and brothers in faith, etc. I think that it's all going to depend on the person who's accepting Islam, and it's all going to depend on the type of Islam that they quote unquote accepted, the orientation, the dawah orientation. Because there are many people who come to Islam and they don't know much about Islam, but it's common sense for a person to say, why did I become a Muslim if the Jews and the Christians are believers? I can just remain a Jew or remain a Christian. That doesn't make any sense. Why would a person become the thing that he swore to go against and to leave off and abandon? So a bit of common sense, let alone the dawah orientation. Somebody may accept Islam from a place which is balanced or orthodox or authentic, and they know that that's not true from day one. How can they be believers and they say that Islam is terrorism and terrorists and Muhammad was a murderer? How can they be like us? That doesn't even make any sense. But if a person accepts Islam and there is a hint of interfaith, or there is a concept of, you know, we live in this neighborhood or we live in this town, or somebody moved to the United States, migrated to the United States, and we can't hate them, we can't say this, they're really truly believers, they're not atheists, they're not polytheists, so on and so forth. Then that new person to Islam, he may become victim to that. And oftentimes a person is on the Islam of those who called him and those who invited him. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants good for that servant, he'll guide him and take him away from that misguidance or that incorrect understanding or practice. But there are many people who are just going to remain upon that. And perhaps it's better for them than straight kufr. At the end of the day, the Jews and the Christians are not Muslims. And no one shall enter paradise unless he or she is a Muslim. No one will enter paradise unless he or she is a believer. And those who know about Muhammad and reject Muhammad are not believers. They're not believers. Those who know that Muhammad is the truth and he's a messenger and a prophet, but they do not accept him and acknowledge him, they will go to the fire of hell. Waliyadu billah. As the Prophet ﷺ said, Alhamdulillah alladhi anqadhahu bi minan nar. All praises for Allah who allowed me to be his deliverance from fire. And the boy knew that the Messenger of Allah was true. He was going to make the shahada, but he asked his father's permission what? First. Then when he made the shahada and he acknowledged it, then the Messenger of Allah said what? All praises for Allah who used me to save him. So just knowing it isn't enough. Okay? There are some people, they say Muhammad is the prophet of the Arabs or the prophet of the Muslims, not our prophet. He's a true prophet, but just not ours. They're kuffar. Let alone those who disrespect the Prophet Muhammad and don't accept him, say he's a liar and a madman, and he stole from Christianity and he stole from Judaism and he put it into a sloppy collage and he called it Islam. So many of them, if not most of them, say, so how can they be believers? Yani? How can they be believers, those who say this? So we have to be mindful of these things, and Allah knows best. Question from Allah. Sheikh Mufti.
Initials, Brother Lutfi H. from Queens, New York City. Assalamu alaikum, beloved and kind Sensei. If one missed paying zakat al-mal due to negligence and ignorance, is he still required to pay zakat for those missed years? Shukran.
Tayyib. Brother Lutfi, may Allah bless you and brighten your face. And may Allah Azza wa Jalla whiten your face on the day in which many faces will be blackened. Jazakallah khairan for the question. Yes, make the zakatul mal. For the years that you were negligent, not you, but a person, for the years in which your money was being held by somebody else, debt, whenever you get your money back, or you get mentally back on track and you know that this is what you have to do with your money, pay the zakat. And calculate it based off of the years that went by. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. Tfaddal.
What is the meaning when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the kuffar from Ahlul Kitab, and some people have a misunderstanding of this, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ? What is that?
Clear. Question says, what is the meaning of Allah Azza wa Jalla's statement that when Allah says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, those who disbelieve from Ahlul Kitab, or from the Mushrikeen, or As-Sabi'een, etc. Naam, Man amana minhum, those who believe from them. And many people they use it as a misconception, etc. I would say, oftentimes, it's very important to understand tafsir in the light of history, and in the light of political science, and in the light of geography. What's going on? Social studies, huh? When you were in school, yeah, social studies. What's going on in the world today? And in the Islamic University of Medina, you have a course which is called Hadir al-Alam al-Islami. There's a course that every college has to take, which is called the State of the Islamic World. The State of the Islamic World. So what's going on in the world today? Would someone say that the Jews and the Christians are believers, hum ikhwanuna, they're our brothers, hum muwahidun, they're monotheists? Would someone say this 100 years ago? Would someone say this 200 years ago? You understand this? What's the difference between 100 years ago and 200 years ago? The tafsir. There's a huge difference in political science. There's a huge difference in politics and geography. What's going on in the world today? How the Muslims were 200 years ago and how they are today. So how the Muslims live, strength and weakness, minority, majority, etc. All of that has an effect on modern day tafsir. And would the Muslims even make that statement? Would they say that the hadith means man baddala dinahu faqtuluhu? Would they say it like this back then? In the state in which we are today, people say different things. So you have to understand the history of interfaith. You have to understand the history of interfaith. You have to understand the history of these statements. When the scholars start making these new interpretations and these new ijtihadat, when the people start saying that all the religions are the same, at the end of the day, they're Abrahamic faiths. And the kuffar are Hindus and Buddhists and Sikhs. And the kafir, the word kafir is someone who knows the truth and rejects the truth. My neighbor who's not a Muslim isn't a kafir. When did people start saying things like this? 200 years ago, 100 years ago, 50 years ago, not even that far back. Did a Muslim from this country have a neighbor who was a what? Kafir. So we have to understand the dunya and its effect upon Islamic thought, unfortunately. So this whole concept of interfaith, they're not kuffar, they're not going to hell, they're this, they're that. It came with a reason and for a reason and from a reason. And the biggest reason is the dunya. You're not going to tell your neighbor with your comfortable money and house and savings and all your children go to school and college. The American dream. Those who gave you this dream are kuffar, mushrikun, fi nari jahannam khalidina fiha. Unfortunately. So you have to be mindful of this. Al-Muhim is two answers. Bil khusus. The first answer is those who did believe that were originally Jews or Christians or Sabians, Sabi'ah, Zoroastrians who accepted Tawheed. And they were called those who believe from the Jews and the Christians. They're no longer Jews and Christians. Last but not least, had min jins, yani. Wa'adallahu ladina. Allah has promised those who believe and do righteous deeds from among them. And what sahabi, what companion didn't do righteous deeds and believe? Of course, all of them did. But Allah, He mentioned minhum, yani al-jins. Meaning all of them. That's an Arabic style. So min al-ladina, that those who disbelieve from among them, they are disbelievers. Those who believe from among them, they are believers from among them. You understand? And Allah knows best. That's in brief, of course. That's in what? Extreme summarized, yani, on a topic that serious. Allah knows best. Fadl Naim.
Sheikh, can you explain the hadith between the argument between Adam alayhi salam and Musa alayhi salam?
Question says, can you explain the hadith of the argument or the debate between Musa and Adam alayhi salatu wasalam? As if you're referring to the hadith pertaining to the qadr, the divine preordainment. It's a very simple explanation. And that is that Allah Azza wa Jalla willed for them to talk and for them to conversate. And there are other hadiths in which Musa alayhi salatu wasalam conversed and conversated with other prophets, such as the Prophet Muhammad. Alright? The concept of the prophets being dead, and the concept of their souls and their spirits having contact. The Isra and Mi'raj, when he ascended to heaven. Alright? So at the end of the day, Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, he used a fact against Adam, and Adam alayhi salam used a fact against him. So he says that because of your sin, you ate from the tree, you listened to the shaitan, you allowed him to trick you, all of your children and your offspring now suffer in this hayat dunya, a place of envy and jealousy and murder and bloodshed, etc. because of your one sin. He was blaming him and he was censuring him, criticizing him. It's your fault that we have to live in this wretched place. And that's a fact. That's a what? That's a fact. And Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, he also mentioned a fact. And he says, do you blame me for something that was written upon me years before I was even made and created? In other words, he referred back to the knowledge of Musa and the acceptance of Musa of the qadr. Musa knew that there was what? qadr. And he knew that it was written upon Adam, it was fate for that to happen. And the hadith says, فَحَجَّ آدَمُ Musa. So Adam beat Musa in a debate. So Adam alayhi he did not use the qadr as an excuse to disobey Allah. That's the problem with the hadith. He didn't use it as an excuse. Stop smoking weed. Hey man, it's fate. It's the qadr. Allah is not going to put on me if it's what? More than I can bear. It's the qadr, so light it up. La. Or some people drink, huh? They take another glass, say, hey man, this is some really good kavasi or whatever you're drinking, huh? And say it's the what? It's the qadr. Before the act and during the act, that's haram. So let's say, for example, you and Adam have an argument, and Adam tells you to do something. You shouldn't be doing it, Sakhi, that's wrong. And you tell him, well, you used to do it. You were drinking all of those years, chasing the girls. You were buck wild. Everybody knew. Now you have a beard and you're righteous and you're religious. I'm not saying that's your history, your past. It could be. I don't know. But Adam could easily say what? Nah, that's right. I did used to chase women and drink. And that was what? That was the qadr. Allah decreed that upon me. That's in the past. After a person has made tawbah and reformed and rectified his situation, then he can use what? The qadr. And that's what Adam did. That the musibah, the calamity that came from the sin, that was something that was written upon him. So we have 3 levels now. Before, during, and after. Before the act, you can't use the qadr. Because you don't know what is qadr. During the act, you can't what? You can't use the qadr because you don't know what's meant. And if you have enough understanding that it's qadr, you also have enough understanding to say what? It's haram to drink. After the act, tawbah, you're doing the right thing, you can say what? That's in the past. That was written upon me. I'm done with that. Allah put that on me for a reason. That's the proper understanding of that hadith. Allah knows best.
Initials OS from Colombia, MO. If a sister typically sees purity on the 9th/10th day of her menses by inserting cotton, what should she do when around that time she is inserted cotton and there was a light yellow color? Then when she checked later, the cotton had a darker color. Now is the 12th day and there's a light color at one point, then slightly darker than next.
So, question comes from Columbia, Missouri, with regards to a woman becoming pure from her menstruation. On the 9th/10th day, she inserts a piece of cotton and she finds that it is the color of yellow or some type of discharge, not like blood. And then later on it's darker, then lighter, give or take a little bit, etc. If you have a normal menstrual cycle, in which there's a minimum and a maximum, then that which takes place after the maximum amount of your normal days, don't consider it to be anything. Do not consider it to be anything. So a woman, she has a normal cycle, which is 6 to 8 days. Nothing more than 8 days, for sure. And nothing less than 6 days. Could be 7 days, but nothing less than what? 6. So on the 9th day, she inserts cotton, or it's the end of the 8th day towards the beginning of the 9th day, it's still some type of discharge, or some type of color, golden brownish type of color. Don't consider it to be anything. Don't consider it to be anything. And only consider the menses was in your standard time of menstruation. As far as if your menses is unstable, that's a different story. If your menses are not regular, beginning and ending, the maximum, minimum, then that's a different story. What's important is there's a difference between blood and there's a difference between discharge. If you have some type of discharge, a darkish color, it looks something like blood, but it's not absolutely blood within your normal time, that's a different story. Within that 6 to 8 day period. So it depends on you, the person. And the brief to ulama of Islam, as we've explained many times before, a woman with menstruation has the following scenario. Scenario number 1 is ذات العادة المتقررة. ذات العادة المتقررة is the woman who has a normal cycle, beginning and end, and the time and the number of days and how it flows. So a woman, she says, I get my period the 1st of every single month, and it is for 5 days. Really strong in the beginning, and it wanes on the 3rd and the 4th day, and that's it. She has a normal cycle to base herself off of. Number 2 is the woman who has a cycle which is not stable. It's not normal. It comes and goes. In the beginning of the month, middle of the month, end of the month, 6 days, 4 days. It comes and goes how it wants to, depending on my diet, depending on how I'm feeling, depending if I'm traveling, etc. So if she can distinguish the days in which she's bleeding, then she goes with her tamyiz. And that last but not least is the woman who doesn't know. The blood just flows and pours. Or the discharge, it just keeps coming. There's no distinction. I'm bleeding like this all of the time. So a woman, she has to first and foremost figure out her scenario. And there's also another scenario that I forgot to mention, which is al-mubtada'a. Is a woman who begins her menstruation. The woman who gets her menstruation for the first time, what does she do? She bleeds for 2 days. Is that menses or not? Does she make her ada based off of that or not? So all of these details have to be based off of the woman's personal situation. And Allah knows best.
And this is F. Ali from London, UK. What are the physical signs of a good and bad death? And what should one do when approaching death?
A question comes from the UK. What are the good signs or the signs of a good and bad death, and what you do when approaching death? Allah knows best. Yani, Allah knows best. For sure, someone dying in prayer, bi'idhnillah. Someone dying on Hajj. Someone dying on the battlefield, bi'idhnillah. Only Allah knows who fights in his cause. And the Prophet says, only Allah knows, wallahu alam biman yuklamu fi sabili, who's wounded for his cause. Every wound is not what? For Allah. Okay, so dying on the battlefield, bi'idhnillah, that's a good sign. Dying in prayer is a good sign. A person who lived a very long life upon obedience to Allah, upon ta'at, upon ibadah and sunnah, and they die peacefully in their sleep. Hopefully that's a good sign. Hopefully that's a good sign, okay? As far as a bad sign, then obviously a person dying doing disobedience. A person dying doing haram acts. A person in a deathbed and he can't say the shahadatain. Waliyadhu billah. He just can't say it. He's talking, and then when he says make the shahada, and now he becomes incapable of speech, or he keeps stuttering. Only Allah knows. And you understand what I'm saying to you? The different signs like this, all right? So Allah knows. These are some general signs. What's important is when death is approaching you, then it's upon you to make tawbah to Allah. And it's upon you to free yourself from any financial obligations and responsibilities. And it's upon you to make sure that your wealth is going to be handled properly after your death. And it's upon you not to divorce your wife and give gifts to your children. Big gifts, major gifts. Many brothers, they do this. And the ulama of Islam, they've explained this and it being haram for a man to divorce his wife on his deathbed. He's only divorcing her what? So she won't get the money, the inheritance, the house, the cars, his boats, whatever he has. You no longer my what? You're no longer my wife anymore. Or he starts giving out things to his children as gifts. In other words, to prevent the inheritance. And things like this, huh? Things like what? Things like this. Last but not least, the ulama of Islam, they say that when a person is very sick and they're on their deathbed, it seems as if they're on their deathbed because Allah knows, they should have nothing but hope for Allah. Do away with your fear. Fear is done. There's no point in you having hope anymore. It has to be absolute hope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's because there's nothing that you can do. You can't drink, you can't do haram. You're in a hospital bed, you're dying, you have a fever. There's no haram that you can what? Fall into. And you having that type of fear and that terror and that tremor is not helping you, but it's going to lead to bad thoughts of Allah. So have nothing but what? Hope. As far as when you're young and strong, then that's a different story. Someone will say you should have more fear than hope. And Allah knows best. Fadal.
What makes a person qualified to give ruqyah to someone else who's like affected with jinn or hasad?
Question says, what makes a person qualified to give ruqyah to someone else? Someone that may be affected by jinn or hasad or ayn, etc. Yeah, I mean, anyone can do the ruqyah if they can do the basics of the ruqyah. But doing ruqyah as a profession, ruqyah for hire, putting yourself out there to do ruqyah, that's a different story. So you want to do ruqyah on yourself? Tafaddal. You do ruqyah on your wife or your sister or your brother? Tafaddal. You don't have to be a half of the Quran. You don't have to know Arabic. You don't have to be the most best person, but you have to have the basics. And that is, you have to know the reality of ruqyah. You have to know the conditions of the ruqyah. The reality of it and the conditions of it. And you have to have the ability to recite and to say that which is necessary to be recited and said of the Quran, of the Hadith, even if you're reading from the book. Even if you're what? Reading from the book. And obviously you should be pious yourself. You should be righteous. You should be upright. You don't have to be a perfect angel that came down from heaven, but you have to be pious and righteous. And that's because the ruqyah is a deep concept. And you and your spirit and your relationship with Allah has a big effect on the person that you're what? Reading upon. All right? And when you speak or when you say something or do something and you believe in it yourself, it's going to have an effect upon the next person, no doubt. Conviction and confidence has a big part of what you pass on to others, let alone the concept of the jinn not going into you, or the ayn not falling on you, or you falling into sin by making ruqyah on someone. You being weak and scared. You're not having the confidence to say what's needed to be said in the ruqyah. All right? So these are some of the basic conditions. As far as you doing it as a profession, a person doing a raqi, yani, then that's a higher level. That's a higher level. That's a much higher level. And Allah knows best.
Initials UW from London, UK. Assalamu alaikum. If a couple got married but they was in separate countries and hadn't consummated the marriage, can the walima still take place?
Question says, if a couple gets married, they're in different countries, they have not consummated the marriage, can the walima take place? The walima should be after the consummation, inshallah ta'ala, or right before the consummation. It being haram or false or batil or invalid without consummation, I can't say that, but that's what it should be. The walima, the sunnah is that it's after the consummation. After the consummation. Many people, they do it before. They have a little banquet, a little dinner. Tayyib, inshallah, la bas. But it should be afterwards. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best.
And this is MR from Hyderabad, India. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh. What is the ruling of playing in a football tournament where money is collected from each team and winner is given the money from the collected money?
A question comes from Hyderabad, India. Playing in a football tournament. Money is collected from each team and the winner is given the pot at the end of the game or the tournament. Don't participate in this. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Do not participate in this. And according to some scholars, this could be considered gambling. Because you're giving money with the possibility of earning money. As far as if the money was collected through other people as donations and they make a reward for the winner, that's one thing. But you yourself paying, you may get it, you may get it not. That, without a question, is going to fall under gambling. And Allah knows best.
And this is RA from Richmond, CA, California. Assalamu alaikum, Mufti. What is the ruling on combining prayers when it's raining? And do we still pray sunnah? May Allah grant you another wife. Say Ameen.
Where's the question from?
Got the question. This is from the dua.
California?
This is RA from Richmond, California.
Right. Question is regarding making salah together, combining salah because of rain. And can a person make these sunnah prayers, etc.? Al-Muhim is that if the prayer is made in congregation, and it is a hardship for the people to come back to the masjid for the next salah, like Dhuhr, Asr and Dhuhr, Isha after Maghrib, la bas. Combine the salah as the ulama of Islam have explained. The permissibility and oftentimes the recommendation of doing that to remove hardship from the people. It doesn't have to be rain, it could be extreme heat. It could be a forest fire, whatever that thing is. So it makes it a difficulty upon people coming back out. That's the sunnah, all right? As far as making the sunnah prayers, make the sunnah prayers when you go home. Or if you want to make the sunnah prayers in the masjid, al-muhim, la bas. The sunnah prayers are to be done as well. The purpose of that legislation is to make it easy for the people not to have to come back out. And this also proves that the jama'ah is obligatory. Why would you have the ability to combine two prayers if you don't have to come to the masjid from the get-go? That's just as a faida, yani, janibi, as a side benefit. And Allah knows best.
This was YM from UK, Stoke, near Birmingham. Is it permissible for your spouse to talk about previous relationships before marriage? If so, isn't this confessing sins to other than Allah?
Right. Question comes from the UK. Is it permissible for the spouse to talk about previous marriages before this current relationship or previous relationships, whatever it may be, zina, marriage, al-muhim? Right? That's the question it's saying, right? Tayyib, al-muhim. Abu Tawbah, huh?
About previous relationships before marriage.
Previous relationships before marriage. Is it permissible to talk about it during marriage as it means that you're revealing your sins? It depends on what you say. It depends on what you say. And it also depends on what was known. And it depends on your current situation. A sinner who's in a sin, he should hide himself and cover himself. A person who's come out of that sin, he's finished, he's done. And there is a benefit in him explaining certain things to certain people and certain situations. That's one thing. That's one thing. I used to do this. I used to be in a gang. I did this. I wasted these years of my life, such and such. Now I'm out of it. And I'm here to tell the youth about don't join a gang. And gangs are evil and gathering. That's one thing. And oftentimes they won't listen to somebody unless they what? And they can relate to what's going on. You don't know anything about it. You're a goody two shoes. What can you tell me about joining a gang? You go to work, you do this, you come home, you don't know anything about the real life on the streets, peer pressure, having no option except to do something illegal. You don't know. But someone who's been through that, they're not going to what? They're not going to say that to. So certain things to certain people in certain situations, it's one thing. So you may tell your wife about something that you went through, how much you love her, how much you appreciate her, or you may tell your husband about, the rough times that you had to go through, how Allah guided you, what led you to the sunnah. Mashi, mumkin. As far as you just exposing unnecessary things that don't need to be unearthed and unveiled, then that's a different story, and perhaps it can come back to bite you. Perhaps it can come back to what? Bite you. You may not even realize, you may talk about something, a past woman, or zina or whatever, and your wife may bring it up later against you, like, you still love that woman. You love that woman more than me. Allah al-Mustan. Or the man, vice versa. It may be a thing in which a woman, she still has feelings for this man. No doubt. Marriage does not equal love. And zina does not equal what? Hatred. Person may love someone in zina and barely like somebody in what? In marriage. So be mindful of what you say. And it's all from the wisdom of you keeping that what? In the past. And giving a lot of sadaqah now. And Allah knows best. Khalas?
I was speaking with a brother before, and he said it's very hard for him to get married because he was married for a short time before to another sister, but it was very short, but it didn't work out. Now, when he's going, he keeps on telling everybody, I was married before and divorced.
Okay.
So it's like
a bad name.
I was telling him that I don't think you have to.
Al-Muhim, brother who was married for a really short period of time. And he's trying to get married now, and as if he has a tarnished name. You were married for a week, for a day, for 24 hours. You had a quick, simple marriage.
A couple of months.
A couple of months, whatever it may be. Like you're a bad person. First of all, is that we can't generalize things, guys. Someone who's married for a long time, it could be a good thing, and it could be a horrible thing. Just because you're married for years doesn't mean you're a good person. And just because you're married for a short period of time doesn't mean you're what? A bad person. It does not mean. Can it mean with certain people in certain situations? No doubt. You're reckless, you're irresponsible. Who did you marry? What did you know about the sister? You were married for 2 hours. What happened? No doubt. But if you're married for 50 years, it may be an abusive relationship. It may be 50 years of you not giving this woman her rights. 50 years you sleeping in a different bed. 50 years you cheating. Allahu Alam. Just because you're married for a long time doesn't mean it was a healthy marriage. Doesn't mean what? It was a healthy marriage. So that's the reality. Oftentimes, marriages that go on for years are unhealthy. And everyone has health issues in their marriage. Everyone has problems. We're talking about what? A sickly person in which their sickness is much more than their what? Their health. A marriage which is full of drama and full of problems, abuse, lack of rights. And there's major issues going on in this marriage for years in which the spouses don't care or one spouse doesn't care. It doesn't mean it's a good thing for it to be together. Rather, it may be recommended for them to divorce. And if you had a quick situation, that could be a good thing. Because alhamdulillah, you removed yourself from it. You weren't captured by attachment. She's a nice sister. She looks beautiful, but she's no good for me. I gotta go. She doesn't want to pray. It doesn't matter how beautiful she is. What? Peace. So sometimes that's a virtue. Because many men or women, they can't bounce back. They aren't flexible. They get into a situation, that's what? That's it. Khalas. You don't see the brother in the masjid no more. He's gone. What happened to Fulan? He got married. Oh, khalas. This was in the Islam University of Medina. Wallahi. When a student was missing or a student was late, they say, where's Fulan in the class? He says, Tazawwaj. As soon as he said got married, the sheikh would say, tayyib. And move on to the next student. Wallahi. So this is reality. You got to be mindful of this. I'm not making this up. Wallahi.
But then now, when he's going to seek marriage, does he have to?
Just keep it real.
Does he have to?
I was married for 2 months, and this is why. If he's a good brother and he has a good reason, no good sister is going to reject him because of that. Even if it was a bad reason. If he's a good person now, Bismillah. 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 Now, obviously, people have resumes, of course. Things look bad on your resume. But a real good employer, he's going to look at you as a person. What could you bring to my company? All right, you had a bad situation. Everyone goes through things. You got into a fight. You knocked out your manager. All right, no problem. I'll hire you. Really. It's a reality. You see what I'm saying? See, because it may be a manager or a boss who's a jerk. Abusive. And you know, everyone goes through what? Bad situations. Or even being incarcerated. Just because you're incarcerated does not mean you're a bad person. It does not mean that. That's a stereotype. And it's one of the most awful things with the modern system today. You go to jail for doing something illegal. You come out, no one wants to hire you. What are you supposed to do? Yeah, as if the system is made for you to fail again. Waliyadu billah.
What if it's a cultural issue, like he can't get married because he's been married?
Culture, I mean,
like telling people.
Al-Muhim, culture is culture, akhi. There's no doubt. We said before, the culture today among many Muslims, it's not in accordance to the deen or to common sense. It's not in lines with the Quran and Sunnah or the current world today, unfortunately. So, Al-Muhim, the Arabs of old, in the time of the Prophet, when a woman got divorced, why do you think the whole ruling of iddah is there? 3 menses, 1 menses, because what? She can what? Get remarried. And in most cases, she's going to what? Get remarried. And she needs to get remarried, or he needs to get remarried. So the whole concept of the iddah period, it sounds strange today. You may be counseling a sister, and you say, after this menstruation, she's like, I'm not thinking about getting married. Or the brother says, no, you can't get married. If you get married, such and such. Yani, it's not, Islam is not what? It's not like that. As soon as the menses is over, as soon as the 4 months and 10 days is over, she can what? Because marriage then, and even now, but then it was a necessity. Life was hard and difficult. Many women back in the day, they would welcome a second wife. They would welcome it. They would love a second wife, because a second wife means a woman that would take the burden off of her and help her milk cows and goats and sew and stitch and raise children and with the man, his needs, bearing a child, breastfeeding a child, being pregnant, breastfeeding, was hard. So they would welcome a second wife. But obviously life now is what? Totally different. You have a refrigerator, you have a freezer, you have an oven, you have a microwave, you have a smartphone, Uber Eats, you can call and get food, whatever you want. Life is very different now, unfortunately. And Allah knows best.
Initials AD from Minneapolis. MN. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. May Allah bless you. Can women have nail polish on during their menses?
Question comes from Minneapolis. Can a woman wear nail polish during her menses? If a woman is not praying, obviously, in most cases, someone who's not praying is not necessarily going to make wudu. Even though you could make wudu without praying. Such as if you're junub. You had sex with your wife before you go to sleep, you make wudu. That's the sunnah, to make wudu. Or even if it's just the sunnah to wash your face and your hands. Some type of takhfif, yani, to lessen the janaba and being some type of tahara. So a person can make wudu without being in a state of what? Prayer. So a menstruating woman could make wudu to go to sleep. She could make wudu. And if she's going to make wudu, then the fingernail polish, it's best for it not to be on her nails. It's best for it not to be on her nails. Unless the fingernail polish is permeable or saleable or whatever word they use, in which the water seeps through to the cuticles and the fingernails. I myself have experimented and used some of these nail polishes, not on my own nails, my daughter's, okay? And also done research online as well. Actual research, scholastic research about the makeup of the halal nail polish. And I feel that it works. It works. So therefore, al-muhim, a mincing woman can wear nail polish. There's nothing wrong with that. Last but not least, the last important thing is, if you're going to put nail polish on, do not go outside of the house with your hands uncovered. No non-mahram man should see your hands with nail polish or toe polish on. And the ulama of Islam, as we've explained, if a woman does not cover her hand and her face, and she takes that view that she does not have to cover her hands and her face, so that's how she was taught, she is not allowed to put on makeup and adorn herself, her hands and her face. So many women, they violate this. They say, I follow the opinion of Sheikh Al-Bani. I follow the opinion of Imam Fulan, of Madhab Fulan, that the hands and the face don't have to be covered. Play it. But they have a bunch of lipstick on, lip gloss on, makeup on, henna, decorative, all over their hands. Gold and silver and rings. No alim said that. Either you have your hands and your face bare and plain, or with the basic necessities, or you cover your hands and your face if you want to be fancy and looking nice. And Allah knows best. Hopefully that's clear for you. Ta'ammal hadha. Be very careful with this, because it's something that many people make a mistake regarding. And they mix between madhabs and fatwas mistakenly. And Allah knows best.
Initials F. Ali from London, UK. What is the Hanbali position of masturbating and for those in prison?
Question says, or comes from London,
London, UK.
London, UK. What's the Hanbali position for masturbation and those who are in prison? Al-Muhim, whether it's what the Hanbalis say or other than the Hanbalis, it matters not. Al-Muhim, it matters not. What's important is what Allah and His Messenger say. And then what the ulama of Islam understand from what Allah and His Messenger have said, or has said. Alright? Have said. Al-Muhim, at the end of the day, there are scholars who wrote books on masturbation. Those who wrote books on it, some who wrote books on it, alright, of the past and of the present. Shawkani, rahimahullah, alright, he wrote a book on it, and others, they have a book on masturbation, alright. Sheikh Muqbil, rahimahullah, he has a book on it as well, on masturbation. At the end of the day, the issue is well known of masturbation. The best thing is to avoid masturbation and stay away from it. Don't masturbate and avoid masturbation, because it leads to many problematic things, and it contains many vices. And oftentimes the masturbation that Imam Ahmad said was like this, or the Hanbali said was like that, or Shawkani said was like this, it's not the masturbation of 2018, in which a person masturbates to pornography, in which a person masturbates over looking at someone or being a peeping Tom at someone. Did they mean that? Was that the type of lustful, addictive, poisonous masturbation of 2018? In which a person is masturbating, looking at naked women or naked men or homosexuals, or looking at the odor of a man with an uncovered woman. Was Shawkani or Imam Ahmad talking about the falyastamni, let him masturbate? Was he talking about that? Did they have those things back then on this scale? Of course they didn't. So oftentimes people may take the fatwa that Fulan said the masturbation is haram. That doesn't mean that they're talking about you watching porn on the internet, on your smartphone. So it's a huge difference now. Alright? At the end of the day, many of the ulama, they said it's haram. You cannot masturbate. And you should not masturbate. And others who said that you can masturbate if you want to, as long as it doesn't cause you to fall into something else which is actually haram. And some that said masturbation with regards to necessity. With regards to what? Necessity. And fear of you falling into zina or something which is worse. However, I'm going to say, what is going to cause you to fall into something worse? You looking and staring and lusting, and then you're so riled up that you have to masturbate to release it? You shouldn't have been looking and lusting and staring. And that was haram from the get-go. That's not the same as a person saying, I have to masturbate. If you're away from a woman, or a woman is away from a man for a very long time, they can have desires, they can have urges, but it's not the same as a person saying it's a necessity. That's a huge difference. In which a man was with a woman, or he was lusting on a woman, and he became so riled up. He touched her, he fondled her, and he kissed her, and he got naked, and then all of a sudden, her boyfriend came home. Or his phone called, and he had to what? His Uber, a customer called him. I don't understand, is this a reality? Or your husband, whatever the case may be. And you have to what? That's one thing in which a person says, I have to masturbate if not I'm going to get such and such and such and such. But you shouldn't have been in what? No Bluetooth, yaqi. That's a what? That's a situation in which you shouldn't have what? From the first place. So the point I'm trying to get to is, if a person is locked up and he's away from a woman, let's say it's a brother, when is it a necessity for him to masturbate? This is an honest question. When is it a durura? I have to masturbate. If which you know you're away from a woman, it's haram to do this and fall on that. Your desires, your mindset is supposed to already be what? Toned down from the get-go. Then if you're riled up, that's a what? That's a different story, but you have to become riled up through a what? Through a way. And if you're if you're riled up naturally, then in most cases your body is going to cause you to ejaculate through a what? Through a dream. Just look at the wisdom of that now. And that's just a huge difference now. So those who say that you have to masturbate because of necessity, it's something I myself cannot put my mind on. Unless a person is revved up through haram, or they had a really rough past in which they must release this from their body, they have to get the type of pleasure. Both of the two scenarios is based off of something which is what? Haram. So you ta'ammal hada yani. They have to have the fiqh of the kalam of the ulama. Fiqh of the kalam of the ulama. Everyone understand this? As far as a man who was oppressed, he was attacked by a woman, she walked up to him, and then he was, he got an erection and he didn't ejaculate. That's one thing. But you yourself causing your sexual stimulation to go up, and then saying I have to masturbate and it's durura. Yani, this fihi shay min al-bu'd, yani. At the end of the day, Allah knows, and obviously you know your own situation better than anyone else. You know your situation what? Better than anyone else. At the end of the day, the best way is the natural way. If your body is backed up and you need to release, in most cases it's going to what? Happen in a dream. And some ulama, last but not least, a balanced view, they say masturbation is haram by itself, but it's permissible in the company of your spouse. Some of them say it's permissible what? In the company of your spouse. So there are three views of the ulama regarding masturbation, whether you're in jail or not, and Allah knows best. Obviously, if it's a necessity in jail, then it's one thing. But it actually has to be what? Necessity, yani. And not something that you lead yourself to and say it's what? Necessity. And Allah knows best.
Initials NB from Toronto, Canada. How are mukhassars written?
طيب طيب طيب. At the end of the day, the question comes from Toronto. The initials NB. How are mukhassars or mukhtasars written? I don't know what's there. I don't know. لا أدري. المهم, whether it's Islam's word or Nafis's word, المهم. If the person means mukhtasar, a summarized book, perhaps that's what the questioner means. Then at the end of the day, it depends on the book. Yani, there's certain books in which the mukhtasar may do damage. And it depends on the mukhtasir, the one who's doing the summary. You have to be a scholar, you have to be learned to summarize something, because you have to know what stays and what goes, what changes it and which what allows it to flow. Some of the ulama, they say every 10 pages you should make one page. Some of them, they say this. Every 10 pages, make one page. That's a general, يعني ضابط عام, a general regulation for summarizing something. But that's not what every single book. That's not what? What every single book. Okay? At the end of the day, the science of summarizing books is extremely important. And some of the ulama, some of them, they say that the student of knowledge should make his own mukhtasar. You should make your own summary of a book yourself, for yourself. Make it for yourself, by yourself, huh? Some of the ulama, they say this. In the act of summarizing something, it leads to you developing your skill and you developing your fiqh and your understanding. And all speech doesn't need to be kept, but some speech does need to be kept. And it allows no doubt if you took two people and you gave them a 5-minute clip, one person will summarize it and distort the meaning, and another person will say 30 seconds, 1 minute, this is all you need from the clip. Okay, fiqh differs from person to person, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. You were wrong.
That's what they wrote. I'm reading what they write.
طيب خير إن شاء الله.
Inshallah, initials HS from Toronto, Canada. What is sudden death a sign of?
طيب المهم, inshallah, we're going to stop here tonight. Jazakumullahu khairan for your time. May Allah Azza wa Jalla bless you and reward you well.